Okay, so now I know I have done a lot of reviews on spicy content novels, but that is not the only type of book I read. Besides paranormal and horror stories, because that's also something I am into, and I'm also going to talk a lot about a few different horror books that I've recently read that I also love, but I read the classics. I am huge into Jane Austen, love Jane Austen. In fact, one of my obsessions has always been Pride and Prejudice. One of my favorite movies. I love a lot of the different versions of Pride and Prejudice that have been out there. The Keira Knightley one is still one of my favorites. In fact, my mom and I, before she passed away, we had a tally of how many times we would watch the Keira Knightley version when it would come on TV. We were up to 211 times before I lost the tally book where I put the little lines of how many times we actually watched that movie. But no, I have read Pride and Prejudice, I don't know how many times now. I love Pride and Prejudice, but I've loved most of Jane Austen books. So I don't just read spicy novels or horror novels or spooky mysteries, things like that. I read a lot of the classics as well. I have also read a few reimagining of classics, like this one, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Love this book. Now, the one thing I actually really love about Pride and Prejudice and Zombies is because it's basically just Pride and Prejudice. Elizabeth Bennet had been obliged by the scarcity of gentlemen to sit down for 2 dances, and during part of that time Mr. Darcy had been standing near enough for her to hear a conversation between him and Mr. Bingley, who came from the dance for a few minutes to press his friend to join in. "Come, Mr. Darcy," he said, "I must have you dance. I hate to see you standing about by yourself in this stupid manner." "I certainly shall not. You know how I detest it, unless I am particularly acquainted with my partner. At such an assembly it would be insupportable. Your sisters are engaged, and there is not another woman in the room whom it would not be a punishment for me to stand up with." "Upon my honor," cried Mr. Bingley, "I have never met so many pleasant girls in my life as I have this evening, and there are several of them that you see uncommonly pretty." "You are dancing with the only handsome girl in the room," said Mr. Darcy, looking at the oldest Miss Bennet. "Oh, she is the most beautiful creature I've ever beheld. But there is another one of her sisters sitting down just behind you who is very pretty, I dare say very agreeable." "Which do you mean?" And turning around, he looked for a moment at Elizabeth, till catching her eye, he withdrew his own and coldly said, "She is tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt me. I am in no humor at the present to give consequence to young ladies who are slighted by other men." That's literally just Pride and Prejudice. And then they throw in some zombies on occasion. The second unmentionable was a lady much longer dead than her companion. She rushed at Elizabeth, her clawed fingers swaying clumsily about. Elizabeth lifted her skirt, disregarding modesty, and delivered a swift kick to the creature's head, which exploded in a cloud of brittle skin and bone. She too fell and was no more. The third was unusually tall, and though long dead, still possessed a great deal of strength and quickness. Elizabeth had not yet recovered from her kick when the creature seized her arm and forced the dagger from it. She pulled free before he could get her teeth on her, and took a crane position, which she thought was appropriate for an opponent of such height. The creature advanced, and Elizabeth landed a devastating chop to its thighs. The limbs broke off, and the unmentionable fell to the ground helpless. She retrieved her dagger and beheaded the last of her opponents, lifting its head in the air and letting her battle cry be known for a mile in every direction. So basically, Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies is pretty much word for word Pride and Prejudice, as I said, with some zombie action thrown in. And what I love about this is it was kind of geared more towards, well, of course, those who love the classics and the younger generation of readers, and it kind of tricked them into reading the classics and learning to love them. I actually had talked to some younger generation teenagers, like 13 and up, who were like, "Oh my God, this is like the best book ever." I mean, boys and girls and all sorts of like young kids, and they were just like so enthusiastic about this book because of the zombies, not realizing that they were reading one of the greatest love stories, in my opinion, ever written. So that's why I love Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. It is really great. It was written, of course, by Jane Austen for the most part, but there were some little spice here and there thrown in by Seth Grahame-Smith. I think I'm pronouncing that. Is it Grahame-Smith? But yeah, that like a little bit of the action-packed zombie thriller parts were kind of put in there by Seth. But yeah, mostly it is, like I said, it's basically Pride and Prejudice with some action. But I really, truly did love this interpretation because it's still Pride and Prejudice for the most part, and it got kids reading the classics. And there are other versions out there of Jane Austen books and other classics. I believe like Sense, Sensibility, and Sea Monsters, which is also very good. But yeah, it gets kids reading the classics. So, hey, who am I to judge? I actually enjoyed it myself. So there you go. So yeah, this book, 5 out of 5. Of course, the original by Jane Austen, 5 out of 5. And maybe I'll just grab my Amazon Prime and pop on some of the Keira Knightley version of Pride and Prejudice for nostalgia. So there you go. Anyway, as for my book, I finally sent the complete manuscript over now to the publisher after making the corrections to the 4 chapters that they needed me to do. And, you know, I've got all of the documents that they needed me to sign signed. I've got everything that they need sent over, pictures, releases, everything is all sent. Now I'm just waiting to hear back from them if there's any other changes they need me to make or whatnot. So that's, the ball is rolling on my book. Hopefully soon I'll be hearing about a potential release date or anything like that, and I'll keep you guys notified about that stuff. So yeah. Anyway, I am trying now to get this to 1,000 followers. So if you guys see this video, make sure you like, follow, interact, share, do whatever you can to help promote this book talk channel. If you love books, if you love reading, if you love just being on TikTok and you just, I don't know. Anyway, talk to you guys later. Bye.